So just to introduce our first speaker, we're really delighted to have our keynote done today by Michael Webb on navigating the opportunities and challenges of AI in education. And Michael, if you'd like to come up and join us, whilst I just explain. Michael's the Director of Technology and Analytics at Jisc, the UK Digital Data and Technology Agency focused on tertiary education research and innovation. Jisc actually host our mailing list, so we're very grateful to them for that. He's co-lead of Jisc's National Centre for AI and Tertiary Education, supporting the responsible and effective adoption of AI across the tertiary education sector. So a really excellent person to talk to this subject today. Thank you so much, Michael.
Thank you. Great to be here. Really nice to be at a face-to-face event. We're still doing so many that are online, so it's absolutely lovely to see. Yeah, so you found out a little bit about where I'm from. I'll work with the National Centre for AI in Tertiary Education, aim to take a fairly practical and hands-on approach to helping people use AI in education. So we do that by things like pilots, so we've run about 8 or 9 of them so far. One of them is with Grade, that you're going to hear about later, which is fantastic to hear. Advice, community events, and things like that. So today I'm just going to kick off with a very broad discussion about AI, and generative AI in particular in education. And I'm going to frame it as some challenges and opportunities, if that's okay. So just so I can get a feel for who I'm talking to start with, who's used ChatGPT? Cool, good. I guessed that was going to be the case, so I haven't done a huge intro to ChatGPT in this one. But what I will do is talk about some of the other generative tools that we're seeing. So, kick off with our first challenge, and this is around pace of change of this. What we've seen is things that have moved really quickly over the last 12 months, and they've moved amazingly quickly over the last 6 months. And this creates a real challenge for us and educators in keeping track of the things that are out there, the things our students are using, and the things that are coming, and how they affect learning and teaching, and how they affect assessment. And I'm just going to kind of whiz through some of the things that aren't ChatGPT to start with, to kick that off. So most of us know that ChatGPT was released November last year, and that's when things kind of really kicked off in terms of interest. GPT was actually released in 2018, and it was kind of rubbish then, to be perfectly honest. So no one took much notice of it. We had a little hype cycle in 2020 when GPT-3 was released, but it really was kind of hype at that point because again, it wasn't that great. Certainly at assessment. So this was the point that it really captured everyone's imagination. But the generative AI space is much broader than just ChatGPT. So first of all, in the chat space, we've got multiple players. So we've got Google Bard that you're probably aware of. We've got Claude. And what we're seeing is the chat coming into lots of other applications. So Snapchat is one that actually you'll find students use a lot. It's ChatGPT behind it, but it's got a really friendly kind of body-like persona attached to it. It's coming into search, whether that's a good thing or not is debatable, in that it's adding in misinformation, higher energy use courses and so on, but it's there, and we're not going to be able to avoid it. Image generation, I guess most of you have seen AI-generated images. And then we see tools that are built on AI. And to start with, these were kind of ones that perhaps we weren't familiar with, like Jasper and Write-Sonic. But we've seen the mainstream players that our students are probably using move into the generative space as well. So Grammarly is one that is widely used across the education sector, and it will now actually have it has got a generative function that it will write for you. And then we're seeing all sorts of content creation programs appear. And there are lots and lots of these. And if my video works today, I'll show you one of those just so you can see it in action, because they're quite interesting to watch. The rate that these are arriving is really quite, I was going to say impressive or frightening. You make your own choice, I guess. So on the day that I put this slide together, there's something called Futurepedia, if you want to see all of these tools. The day that I put this slide together, 27 new AI applications have been added to it. There are a few thousand there, and lots of them have potentially got either some use or impact of learning and teaching. And there's no way that anyone can use all of them. Tim over there is in my team. Part of Tim's job is to look at these and filter them and shout back which ones are going to be good and interesting. So, and that's something that we try and do. It's Jisc. And then it's getting it integrated into our everyday tools. So you may or may not have seen the announcements on this, but Microsoft are introducing generative AI into Office. We haven't seen it in action yet, but if you watch the video of it, someone yesterday actually at another event I was at described it as a bit like Black Mirror. The video is quite, I should put it in, it's quite impressive. It also, the reason I think it is a little bit Black Mirror-like is it's got this dystopian thing where the person from Microsoft uses it to organise, I think it's their daughter's party or something. I just thought, that's such a terrible use of AI. That's the one thing that humans should do, surely, for your family. Yeah. Anyway, we'll stop thinking of these tools as something separate that you go to do stuff. They'll be there, part of our everyday tools that we use, that our students use. And that really impacts how we need to start thinking about it in terms of assessment, student use, and so on. The Microsoft stuff at the moment, we haven't managed to get our hands on and see. The Google stuff is available now to look at, and it was released a couple of days ago. And I suspect that probably quite a lot of the students still use Google to write, just because they probably use that in school. So they're probably encountering that now. This will be the first. I'll see if my video is actually going to play. Yeah, that's good. That's playing, I believe. Yeah. So you open up a new blank page. It starts off saying, "Help me write." That's the first thing the students see. I'm saying here, write me an intro to an essay about, you see, I was typing really carefully so I didn't make mistakes, AI in education. And off it goes. This is using Bard, it's Google's model. It's got access to the internet, so it can get up-to-date information. It will get things wrong, it will make mistakes, as well as write well. I can say, no, I want that shorter. Gives me some choice of what to do. I can formalize. And then when I'm happy with it, yeah, I can just insert that. And you can see that when that becomes part of the tools that we use every day, that we, let's see, that's a view into my mind. No, it's what Google's advertising to me. There we go. I'll put the clicker. Yeah. Yeah, you can see that it's going to change how we write it all the time, not just in education, but better or worse, that's going to be one of the ways that we write in real life, in work, and all sorts of places. So we need to think about the impact on that and what we teach. The next thing that's happened is GTP Plus now has a plugin module. So you're probably familiar with the restrictions or the issues with ChatGPT itself in terms of it's basically a text prediction engine. It doesn't understand in any sense what you're saying. It'll generate a response based on the training process by humans, and it's the text it was trained on. That means that it can get things wrong a lot. The plugin process changes that paradigm. So what happens here is that ChatGPT is essentially understanding what you're saying, if you like, not literally understanding, pass it on to another service which actually can provide definitive answers. Wolfram Alpha, for example, is probably a particularly relevant one. It's really good at scientific facts and things like that. I wasn't brave enough to get it to do a space demo like Google did when they got it to answer something about planets that got it wrong. But it will come back from a definitive source and give the answer back and let you chat. So the model of it being an unreliable source is changing for those that pay for an extra service. And then we've got lots and lots of content creation programs. So I just want to show you one of these. Just because we think about it being about text, we think that if we're worrying about it for assessment, which I'll talk more about later, it really is text-based assessments that we need to worry about. So this is a program called Gamma. I'm going to make a presentation, and I'm going to say, I want it to be about AI in education. And yeah, it's chatty, like all these things are. It's going to come up with some ideas. It's going to come up with a outline for it, which I just say yes, accept. And there we go. I've chosen a template, and it will make it before our eyes. So there we go. Of the way these things work. And it's not a bad presentation that it's putting together, to be perfectly honest. Just from those two very short phrases that I put in. And we saw a discussion with some students on Reddit saying that they had a presentation to deliver. They got ChatGPT to write the script. They used a tool like this to create the presentation. They read it out. They got top marks, and nobody learned anything. Okay. Now, if you delved into it, the reason that students say they didn't learn anything on this is they actually didn't care on this particular presentation. This is quite important. It was one that for them had no value, and therefore they decided to take a shortcut from it. So these tools can also do have useful things as well, but they are changing the opportunities for students if either maybe they don't care about what they're doing, or there's time pressure and things like that. Yeah, so something we need to think about. Next one, this is a super recent one from yesterday. I only just got access to this. This is, so ChatGPT is powering Bing Chat. And at the start of the year, when talking about assessment, people were saying, right, what we want to do is put diagrams in our work, because that will fool ChatGPT, because it can't read diagrams. Yeah. In March, OpenAI announced that GPT would go multimodal and be able to release read diagrams. And just this week, they've put it into Bing, the browser for everyone to use. So here, I've just given it one of my pie charts. So can you improve it? And yeah, it has actually given me very personalized feedback about that, even down to telling me off for putting this number in the corner here. It's actually my page number, yeah? And you can then start chatting to it about the diagram. So the things that we can do are changing all the time. And that's quite interesting, because you can put it into creative mode or factual mode. Creative mode, it would be actually ChatGPT that chats about it, into quite an interesting conversation. If you put it into one of the more formal modes, it actually searches other websites. It gives you quite bland responses, but you've at least got some control of how it works. And there was an interesting story, I'll just quickly share this one, where somebody posted a picture of a nuclear controller and say, I press this button, what should I do? And ChatGPT got back and said, what? You didn't really press that button, did you? Because obviously they knew what it was. So you can have some interesting fun with that as well. Okay, so that's a kind of a quick whiz through the kind of stuff that we're seeing there beyond ChatGPT. Inevitably, the discussion starts off around assessment. And at the start of the year, we saw one of the rare things in education spills over into mainstream press. We saw lots of, I think, quite unhelpful headlines. And I think they were unhelpful because, first of all, they were framing it that students would definitely cheat if they got the opportunity to. That's not what we think when we talk to students. Most want to learn. And they were assuming that it would be absolutely fantastic at doing all of the assessments. So it was doom and gloom. I just want to have a quick reality check on the capabilities at the moment. Now, bear in mind that these tools are improving all the time. Yeah. So this might not be the situation in a year's time or so on. But one of them that went around quite a lot was ChatGPT could pass an MBA. And hopefully the person who put the paper together put the MBA questions up as well. And that means that you can repeat that one. So don't kind of worry too much about the question that's there. But the kind of moral here is try these things for yourself. So what I'm going to do, and I'll repeat this one yesterday to check you see it works. I've just pasted the question in. I've done it twice. So, has a crack at it. First time it said 500,000, and it's come up with all sorts of very plausible justification. Let's run it again. 2 million this time. Okay. And I ran it about 7 times and got 7 different answers. Now, I think the reason I want to show that is that, first of all, don't believe everything that you read in the press about these kind of things, because they're reported in a certain way. Try them yourself. Next one is that I think in trying them yourself, it'll help you have a conversation with the students. Because from a student perspective, each of those answers you gave look pretty plausible, to be perfectly honest. And navigating that is quite difficult. So in assessment, we're broadly seeing 3 tactics. The first one's avoid, which is revert to in-person exams, which students certainly don't want to do. It's logistically complicated, and it's moving away from most subjects away from authentic assessment. The one that was kind of doing the rounds at the start of the year was let's outrun AI. Yeah, let's devise an assessment that AI can't do. And that's kind of why I wanted to show you some of the things that have changed over the last 6 months. The time frame between you setting the assessment and it coming out means that AI might well be able to do it by the time the assessment's run. So typically now people are moving to an adapt and embrace. So is embrace the use of AI, discuss appropriate use, and actively encourage it. Now, I'm not saying that's easier to write than do, yeah? And balancing authentic assessment and academic integrity is a challenge, but it's one that we'll have to face. And we really think that discussion with students is the way forward on that. Inevitably, discussion here moves to AI text detection. And is it possible to use AI detection? So some of you may have turned into text AI detection enabled. The simple answer is that you can sort of detect AI, and that's written text. But no system today can conclusively prove that text was written by AI. There are 3 main techniques around this. One of them is one that people try and use as well, which was to say that ChatGPT has got a particular style of writing. Our CEO said it sounded to her like mansplaining as a service, which I like as an explanation. The thing is that you can change its default voice, yeah? And I've certainly been fooled by people that have presented stuff that was written by ChatGPT as their own because they've been careful with it. So that's not going to work. And attempts to do that digitally are going to suffer the same thing. Coming along, potentially there may be a watermarking service, but no production system uses it, and we think that will be defeated. So each of these can be defeated by getting ChatGPT just to write differently. My favourite one is if you just tell it to use the word the less, it changes how it's right, and I've defeated every AI detector I've come across just by that simple technique. Yeah. And it'll also give false positives. And this week we've seen the first Students' Union campaign to have the AI text detection switched off because of the number of cases they're having to deal with, which they say students have been falsely accused of writing. Because some people do just write like AI, don't they? Yeah. There we go. We've run a number of workshops with students. So we've done 5 of these with, say, 10, 15 students in each one. So it's not like a super scientific study, but it's quite interesting to find out what they're saying. So most students think that AI should be allowed. Those that don't, interestingly, probably not that relevant to this audience, but those whose, it's English students who don't, so students that are learning, taking English degrees. And I can kind of see why, because it's their core skill. They want clarity on plagiarism detections. They don't want automated marking, but they do want assisted marking, and you're going to see some of that next. So feedback we got on grade from the students was, yeah, that's the kind of approach they want. They want assessment change, so they want it to focus on creativity, critical thinking, not regurgitating facts. And they want it to mirror real-world experience. So if the workplace is going to use AI writing, generative AI, they want to be able to do it in their course. So let's talk more about the students. First of all, we asked them how they were using ChatGPT, and it won't surprise you that a lot of their use was quite sophisticated. Yeah. So put this on less acceptable, more acceptable question mark. This is part of this ongoing discussion. So yes, some of them are just doing what I did with the MBA and pasting it in, but most are using it in a much more sophisticated way. So chatting to ChatGPT, using it to rewrite sections, help with their English, to create images. For getting started, blank page can be quite challenging. Get it to suggest an outline. Safe proofreading. So not everyone's got access to somebody who can read their text. Students say it's safe because it's not pushing them towards commercial proofreading, which can be a kind of gateway to essay mills. Getting feedback and researching topics, which goes into the issue about information literacy. So their concerns are, how do they navigate the misinformation? They want to have guidance around privacy, how these systems use their data. Staff use, and we'll go through all of these. They're more than happy for you to use generative AI in your work, but they want you to be transparent, and they want you to be confident. They want you to be able to talk to them about it. They want equality of access. They're worried about over-reliance. Yeah, and I think this is a good thing. They're worried about how it's going to affect their intellectual development. I found this quite heartening that it wasn't just, yeah, a great shortcut to cheat. It backed up our initial hypothesis that students really want to learn. And employability. So, mentioned before. What they want, material to help with digital literacy. They want practical guidance on it. They want institutional recommendation on tools. We think this will very much vary with subjects. They're worried about the ethics broadly. They want to understand it. They want guidance on that. Environmental impact, human impact. And mostly, they want to be part of the discussion. This comes up every time and time again, which is fantastic to hear. Digital inequality, just to quickly touch on that, and it's quite concerning. One example, if you pay $20 a month, you get access to the latest version of ChatGPT, the plugins that I showed you, super fast access, etc. If you don't, you get intermittent bulk model. Now that's going to change, but we did some calculations, a little set of tools, including the Gamma that I showed you, Midjourney, the generative Grammarly, comes to about £80 a month. Yeah, so students that pay the £80 a month are going to get a tool set that gives them a lot of advantage. We need to think about how we're going to deal with that. Lastly, some quick opportunities, saving staff time, which I guess you're all up for. Lots of people are starting to use it to do things like prepare course materials, but also do things like take course materials and repurpose it for a different audience. So simplify the language for dyslexic support, for example, for second languages, that kind of thing. I'm sure you're all fantastic at lesson planning and things like that. We hear from some subjects that's more of a problem, yeah. So people are using AI to help with lesson planning, all that kind of thing. We're piloting a tool called Teachermatic. We're doing this in FE at the moment, which removes the need to be really good at prompt engineering. It's got a whole bunch of things that teachers currently do. This was developed with teachers, so course planning and course activity generators, and it basically just asks you a couple of questions and will create a lesson plan or rubrics and things like that. So we've just started the pilot on that. We're doing our 1 month evaluation next. Well, actually today I think we're doing some of them, and we're doing a 1 year longitudinal study. And lastly, learning and teaching opportunities. So again, some of these are from colleges, just because we did an event with some colleges a few weeks ago, but they're quite interesting. One of them I liked, learning English language, Macbeth, A-levels, and they got ChatGPT to pretend it was Macbeth, and they got students to interview Lady Macbeth. And I tried this for myself, because that was what I did for O-level, for those that are old enough to have done O-levels. And it was really fun, and it was, just a different way of framing it. Another one, teaching English as a foreign language. They got students to use image generation stuff, where your writing has to be really good to get a good picture. And it was incentivizing them to come up with really good text to get the picture they want. So obviously, not relevant to your subject, but kind of a flavour of the imaginative kind of stuff that's happening elsewhere. And I'll end with perhaps the biggest threat / opportunity, which is what some of the larger organisations are doing. So this is the Khan Academy, which I guess most of you have heard of. So huge amount of online teaching courses, and they've worked directly with OpenAI to create something called Mingo, which unfortunately, again, it's a bit like the Microsoft stuff, we can only see the videos at the moment. But it's an AI-based tutor. They have worked particularly with OpenAI to stop it answering the question, but to guide the student. Yeah, and I think that's quite interesting. So it's basically acting as a tutor, and how good it is remains to be seen. I think some of the early feedback's mixed, but the reason I kind of say it's both a threat and opportunity is that this is kind of the thing that we might well be able to introduce into our learning and teaching, but also I think we need to be mindful that there are big players moving into the lifelong learning and teaching process using AI. I think we all need to keep an eye on them because they're essentially a competitor to our sectors. So that is my whistle stop intro. If you want to keep in touch with our work, we've got a Jisc mail list, which of course we would do, and we regularly post updates on the kind of things we see. So thank you. I think I've got like 1 minute if anyone's got any questions or comments at this point.
Yeah, I'm happy to take a couple of questions.
Yeah,
you mentioned watermarking for detecting AI generation. Could you explain what that is?
Yeah. Right, so this is theoretical at the moment, but roughly what happens is the models have got a big pool of words. Yeah. They split the pool of words into 2 groups. Okay, and the theory is that you can mostly pick the words from one of the sets without changing the meaning of the text. I've got a green set and a red set. In the top one, I've given it freedom to select any word that I want. Yeah, and you get this pattern like that. In the bottom set, I've only let it choose one from the red set, if you like, or I didn't, the researcher did, if it's absolutely critical to the understanding of the text. So you can see visually there that the two look quite different. Because it's only been done as research at the moment, the kind of assumption is that just by paraphrasing, we'll be able to turn that text into that text, and it won't work. But it's not that out in the real world for anyone to try that.
Super interesting presentation, thank you so much. Do you have an estimate of the percentage of undergrads or postgrads using ChatGPT or other AI-enabled tools?
I'm going to give different estimates, if that's all right, because it depends how you ask the students. Yeah. First of all, we've got some figures from Turnitin International, which I'll take as a word with a pinch of salt, because they're using their AI detection software to use it, and all of the issues that I said around that, you said about 40%. If we talk to students anonymously, we see almost all. And when we talk to them in groups, but remember these are a little bit self-selective, yes, we don't know for sure. Generally, all of them are using it for something in that spectrum that I showed you, with the majority towards the helping rather than teaching. But we know that we see things like a student say, my friend asked me to proofread that paper, and halfway through it said, as an AI model, I'm not able to touch a rock and tell you its texture. However, yeah, so we know that it is really mixed.
Okay, so thank you very much, Michael, for your talk. That's been very interesting. I'd love to ask questions around the ethics, but that would probably be a whole day.
It is, yeah, I'd love to talk about that for hours as well. But.
Yeah, but I think that's a topic we might talk about over lunchtime.